you? Are you wasting your time on social media again? Your brothers and sisters in Islam Net from Norway are establishing a masjid, a da'wah center. Establishing a masjid to convey the message of Islam is one of the best deeds a Muslim can do. There's a huge need for it in Norway. You know this and I know this. So that makes the reward even greater. So give generously and Allah Azza wa Jal will give you even more.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you guys doing? As many of you will know, Andrew Tate has been incarcerated without charge for some time, subsequently put under house arrest. And now, this is the first BBC interview of its kind, the first interview of its kind that has just landed, actually, where he was talking to the BBC. In fact, a docile and placid interviewer, very weak body language, very weak argumentation. And I wanted to actually do a kind of analysis on this. So let's take a look at the first point she makes and come back and respond in kind.
You've got the police naming you by name as someone who has a harmful influence on children and on women in the UK and elsewhere because of the things you say.
So the first point she makes is about the police, and she uses it as a kind of appeal to authority. Now, aside from being fallacious, the problem here is what makes the police any kind of authority anyways? I mean, she would have been better off actually mentioning sociological experts, because this is a sociological case. The effect of Andrew Tate. She would have been better off mentioning an academic. But even that is problematic, because who cares? I mean, these are just opinions anyway. But the point is, the police does not represent the judiciary in the UK, let alone can impose judicial ruling. So the fact that she mentions the police as some kind of an important opinion, when we know that this institution in the United Kingdom is one which has been repeatedly accused of institutional racism and corruption and all kinds of problems, is itself problematic. Let's see the second point and respond.
You have said you're the most dangerous man in the world.
I've said I'm the most dangerous man in the world.
I mean, this is almost comical at this point. It's actually laughable at the point of comicality. That's what I would say. I mean, this is you're meeting somebody here. You're meant to be representing alleged victims of major crimes, and this is the strongest argument that you can present. I mean, this is the strongest thing you can say. I think you do a great disservice, okay, to those individuals who want this man to be questioned in a harsh manner, in an interrogative manner. Because is this the strongest thing you can provide? You said that you're the most dangerous man in the world. I mean, you can bring almost any MMA fighter who said something very similar to that. Are you going to question them on that kind of thing? He's a fighter. He has a track record of being a kickboxing champion. Bring Mike Tyson, he said the same thing. Bring Muhammad Ali, he said the same thing. Is this a joke or something? So let's see what she says after that.
You've also said that a woman's intimate parts belong to her male partner. I'm glad you find that funny.
I found this quite actually malevolent and malicious, what she did after that. After he was laughing at this point, she says, you said about that a man owns the intimate parts of women. And then I'm glad you found that funny. And he was already laughing at the first thing that she mentioned. So as if to implicate him into doing something which he didn't, which is laugh at the point about finding women's private parts or owning them or whatever it may be. So I found this actually quite malicious and disingenuous, inauthentic. This shows weakness and insecurity actually on her behalf, because she couldn't elicit anything from him. So she was trying to force the issue and contrive something which wasn't even there. So let's take a look at the next part of this interview.
England, which is a failing nation, which has knife crime going through the roof, violence going through the roof, men's mental health going through the roof.
I like this monologue by Tate because he starts off by talking about some issues, because she mentioned 2 or 3 organizations in the United Kingdom. She says, and he states, look, England's got its own problems, and which is true. We've got a knife crime epidemic. All these things that he mentioned is absolutely true. I mean, I looked at some statistics. 50,000 people, I think, in 2019 were stabbed in the United Kingdom. There are some bigger fish to fry, but she's here talking about to a social influencer about his words online. She wouldn't do that really with people of ethnic backgrounds, okay, potentially grime artists, and why are these people not questioned on the same level? I don't understand that. We have people all over London, for example. What do they call it? Grime, and what's the other one called? Drill artists. You know that. Thank you for that. Drill artists and so on, talking about all kinds of things. Why don't you, if this is the standard, if this is the problem here, why don't you talk to these people about these things? I think it's because there's a cultural reasoning for it. Maybe it's because he's saying it in prose. Why not comedians be scrutinized in the same manner? So I feel like there's a massive double standard going on here. Let's see the next thing that she states.
You have an image of financial
answer my
success.
questions, as she should.
Excuse me. You have an image of financial success, but it comes along with attitudes towards women that are really problematic.
This is a very unusual point, isn't it? She says that you have this financial success, but then you have the side order, she mentions at one point, of misogyny. The side order. Well, that's the point, that you're asserting the point, so you have to bring the evidence. I mean, you're giving your opinion at this point. You're meant to be eliciting look, you're an interrogator here, or at least you're attempting to be an interrogator. So you should be trying to elicit something from him, trying to catch him, trying to corner him. You're just imposing your opinion at this stage. It's actually quite embarrassing. I'm surprised you even work for the BBC. I'm surprised they put you on this project. I don't know why they put the BBC. Should have put someone like Jeremy Paxman, a Jeremy Paxman type, to go against toe to toe with this guy. Because quite frankly, this is no match. It's like putting a lightweight with a heavyweight. This is embarrassing. Why are they doing this? I wanted to see more. I wanted to see him being tested more, because there were some serious allegations. I mean, there were some serious allegations. He should have been tested on these allegations. And like he correctly said, there should have been talk about why was he incarcerated for this long? Why is the justice system as it is in Romania? Why was there no discussion from Amnesty International and other human rights organizations about him being incarcerated without charge? Because if it was that guy Schofield, what's his name? Philip Schofield? Why don't they interrogate him on these issues like that? Why don't they talk about him like that? Because the reason why is because he represents, to a large extent, their same ideological belief systems. They've kind of, if anything, not done that with him. They wouldn't do that with him. I want to see that with him. I want to see that kind of attitude with him. And this is the next point that I wanted to mention here. Let's see what she says here. She states something about if you said women lose authority. And I think this is a very telling point, because she's bringing her own ideological baggage here. Let's take a look at this point here.
If you said to most women, would you want to lose authority in the relationship, to not be treated as a free and legal equal?
Who do you mean by most women? Most white women, most Western women, most world women? If you go to Nigeria and ask women there, would you want to lose authority? And if you went to Mali, if you went to Malaysia, what do you mean by most women in the world? Well, we have lots of evidence to show that women in these parts of the world, they don't believe in the kind of egalitarian ideological points that you believe, that you clearly are trying to espouse, vomit on us, shove down our throats, quite frankly. Shove down our throats. Colonial feminism. I don't think the majority of women in the world today believe in the kind of colonial Western feminism, of the egalitarian system that you believe in, frankly. So if you ask most women, what? You mean Western women? Do they have to be white, or can they be from other races? Or about other religions? What kind of women was that? What do you mean by authority anyway? And frankly, let's go to Western women, because, I mean, maybe she means Western women. She says, if you ask most women, let's go to Western women. Would you relinquish, some of your quote-unquote authority, decision-making capability, let's say for the sake of argument, that's what she might mean, in a relationship that she would otherwise have, for a degree of protection? I think they would, actually. And the evidence of that is in some of the studies, like the famous study by Qing, Qing, on hypergamy, which indicates that the majority of Western women would actually go for a man who's got more money, which would probably put them in a subordinate position in terms of decision-making capabilities, but for that extra financial protection. So I think there is a case to be made that if you go and ask most women, would they lose authority in a relationship to be treated, not to be treated as equals or whatever it is, to relinquish part of their authority, I think they would actually, depending on how. I think many women would do that. But once again, you have to define your terms, and it becomes a childish argument, almost. Childish to a point of comicality. Is this what it's resorting to? And it gets even worse. She's a BBC representative. This is the strongest argument she's giving to a man who is influential, although she doesn't want to agree with that, or at least to the extent which she's claiming.
If someone broke into this house right now and was a homicidal maniac, I would expect me and the other men in this room to stand up and face them, while you and the other women in this room could protect yourselves. I would actually believe the men should go and engage the attacker. I believe that.
So he makes a really good point here. He says, if someone broke into this house, I think this is a fantastic point, because it shows you this idea of rights and responsibility paradigm. And this is a staple part of traditional gender roles. Yes, you sacrifice parts of your so-called rights, but then you also relinquish, or you forego, part of the responsibilities that are required that go with that right, which mean that you get additional protection, which means, yes, I promise you, that woman there with her weak body language, crossing her arms, asking docile questions, that individual, that woman there, representing the BBC in the most abysmal way possible, that individual, if there was any level of physical threat that faced her, she would rely on men undoubtedly in that house to protect her. And she would feel nothing about that. She would feel no sense of, she would feel totally entitled to that, in fact. She would feel totally entitled to that. So yes, I think he made a very good point about if someone broke into this house right now, that's why she circumnavigated that point. These are the points that we're not addressing. The fact that the Ukrainian situation, yes, women and children can go back to their countries or to another country and be rescued, but then men have to fight. These things are being ignored by Western feminists. They are being ignored. That the entitlement is there, but the rights and responsibility. And that's why he's become influential and famous, because he's speaking to those facts, true facts, which women like this, yes, are ignoring. They're ignoring these points. So that's another point. Let's see what she says here, because it gets even worse. I mean, by the moment, she gets even weaker.
Why are so many women saying that when their boyfriends start following you,
They're not.
they experience more control?
So many.
They experience
How many?
more abuse.
How many?
What women are you talking about? You're not presenting any peer-reviewed sociological data here. You're giving anecdotal evidence. And how do we know that the correlation equals the causation? I mean, I don't want to waste my time with this anymore. But the point is this, is that, look, say what you want about the West. There's one thing that Western legal systems have, which is called natural justice. That people are innocent until proven guilty. There's one thing I would say that this BBC representative failed to do, which is interrogate him properly, give him a run for his money, okay? Because at the end of the day, he is someone who can speak well. You should bring someone who can speak well and test him. The BBC failed here. She failed here. And it actually shows a greater agenda at hand, which is that these people here are desperate to force their narrative down our throats. And I say, I think the world has had enough. I think the people have had enough. And now the elephant in the room needs to be addressed, which is feminism even true? Why don't we interrogate feminism? Obviously, we don't believe it is. I mean, but let's cross-examine feminism that you believe in so strongly. Is it good for women? Is it harmful for women? Let's have these conversations, because that's really the conversation. He represents a countercurrent to the dominant narrative in the Western world. Yes, there are some serious allegations, and I'll be honest with you, yes, there are words and statements that he's made which he would have been much better off not making these things. Especially in game theory, they've got this idea of the infinite player. You know, the infinite player is the one who thinks about the finite. Usually, beats a finite player. The infinite player is someone who continues and thinks about doing the same work as they're doing for a very long time, whereas the finite player thinks of doing the work that they're doing for a short period of time. I think Andrew Tate needed to think a bit more like an infinite player, frankly, from a game theory perspective, because a lot of these statements that he made were not self-contained, and they could have been self-contained. And that would be my criticism for Andrew. He could have had more self-contained statements, because a lot of them now are being used, misappropriated. But frankly, he won this one, definitely. It was an easy victory for him. I think he found it very comfortable. And this woman here, she's really shamed herself. I think she should quit her job, actually. I think she should quit her job. And I will suffice with that. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that whoever builds a mosque for Allah, Allah will build for him a similar house in Jannah. And we know the great reward that will not only be gained, but rather will fill your grave after your death. Whenever someone prays there, whenever someone gives shahada in the masjid, whenever someone learns something in the masjid, yes, that will be something that you'll have on your scale.